I mean, the goal is obviously making Worlds. The start is not really representing what we should be. I think some teams got a lot better in the offseason, and some teams got worse, and I think we were one of the teams that actually got worse. I think our practice could have been a lot more efficient. I think we wasted a lot of scrims, played a lot of champions that maybe we shouldn't have played, or like should have played more of the champions that everyone plays, kind of thing. So like I think we wasted a lot of time. On top of that, I mean, I think people are just getting back into the groove of things, like playing back on stage, like how that feels, like a lot of nerves. So I think I'm not too upset about going 0-2. I mean, it sucks because this is where like any team can win. So if you're 2-0, great, like that'd be awesome. But I'm not like really presently like a danger alert button. Like I think we can still make Worlds, and that's like our goal.
Hello and welcome back to week 2 of the LCS, where we have TSM and FlyQuest prepping for game 3. I am David Freak Turley, and no matter how many times he asks, I'm still refusing to do a champion spotlight on his cats. As
you did one on Bentley. It's close enough.
It's not one of your cats, though, is the important thing. It's interesting, actually, to hear Santorin talk about their practice habits. I know during LCS Countdown at the beginning of the day, they talked about being creative versus playing sort of standard, what's more valuable, and he was talking about how, in this case, they actually wasted a lot of practice time in trying to be creative, and then that was kind of wasted effort, and that's kind of the downside of that. We'll see what it does look like as time goes on, but I thought that was an interesting talk. Either way, we're going to roll into the starting roster. Selecting the blue side is TSM with Broken Blade to the top lane, Acadian back up in the jungle, Bjergsen in mid, Sven in bot lane alongside support Smoothie with Coach Ziggs.
And challenging them on the red side today, it's going to be FlyQuest. In the top lane, Viper. In the jungle, Santorin. Mid laner, Pobelter. Bot and support going to be Wild Turtle and JJ with Coach Invert.
All right, so it's going to be an exciting showdown. Last week, we also heard Invert say that the team was working toward becoming a squad that could usurp the top 3, and it looks like we saw kind of the growing pains of explorations in week 1 for FlyQuest.
Yeah, I mean, we heard Santorin talking about that, perhaps trying to be very experimental. If those picks don't end up getting to come out on stage, then yeah, it's a bit of wasted practice time. But it is also very important to remember they played GGS and C9, 2 teams that went 2-0 and looked very good doing it. And, we want to see these guys performing at their best. Santorin and Pobelter were massive for them in the spring, have been such consistent players in the LCS, and they need to be on point if FlyQuest is going to attack that top 3.
Yeah, Santorin was the only player outside of the top 3 teams to crack top 3 players in a row. He's definitely an exceptional talent. We'll see what he can do the rest of this year. Meanwhile, other side of the rift is TSM, and they had their own rocky start, and people are kind of waiting for that spring finals TSM to come back.
Yeah, they really are, and that to me is an aggressive TSM that is using flex picks, right? I watched MSI and watched all these flex picks come through, and I was thinking, well, TSM could very easily do that sort of a strategy. You think with Broken Blade and Bjergsen, they're going to be playing aggressive, but against TL, that is not the squad that we saw. They were playing Azir and Ezreal and playing very defensively, and it felt like it was falling back into some of the habits that TSM has been criticized for in past years. So I want to see them getting back to what they learned in spring, and we also got to keep an eye on game to game how Acadian and Grig are performing, because these guys are competing for the starting spot.
Yeah, definitely something to watch for. Absolutely. Of course, Grig had a very good game last Sunday against CLG. Acadian is back in. So far, it seems like a Saturday-Sunday split. I'm expecting Grig to play tomorrow, for example, and we'll see when they nail that one down. But we are on a champion select, as you mentioned. Aurelia Yuumi banned away on the TSM side. FlyQuest dropping solo laners off the list. Do want to point out we've seen a lot of mid lane Aatrox over the last couple of days here as well, so that's a flex pick in and of itself, and a very strong laner at that.
Yeah, a lot of flex picks being targeted thus far. 3 of the kind of key ones off the tables thus far. There is still Ryze as well as Akali, but these are champions that have received some nerfs and maybe aren't going to be as high priority coming into this week.
Yeah, Akali and Jace, the big solo laners that got, those are the ones that got nerfed heading into this weekend. We've still seen them a little bit. And one final ban for FlyQuest before TSM do get first dibs onto this one. We're waiting to see what comes through. We had, I believe, a pair of Ryze games out of Pobelter himself. Sadly, they didn't turn into wins, but I thought he still looked pretty good while doing so. As the final ban comes in, as Sejuani, as both teams ban away a jungler, TSM gets first pick.
Yeah, and you can see it as kind of those 2 tank junglers that are actually being taken off the table. Sona first picked here by TSM, so there is the opportunity to pick away Taric. I do think Taric, it can function quite well independently of the Sona. You still could go for something like a Taric Hecarim, first 2 picks on FlyQuest, which I think is very powerful in and of itself, and then still play a standard marksman.
Yeah, and I think this is very, very interesting because this time last year, or I should say when Sona Taric got popular last year, everyone said, oh, you can play Taric standalone, but you can't play Sona standalone. So first pick the Taric, they'll never take Sona, you're fine. We've seen Sona Tom Kench, we've seen Sona even without these kinds of crazy things in other leagues as well. What now TSM says, no, Sona's the standalone. She fits with almost anything, we got this. Go ahead, take the Taric, it won't matter if you do. And I like that evolution that we talked about, trying to practice new picks and trying to make your scrim time useful. TSM has said, no, it's the other side of it now. Sona's the blind.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to see that adaptation and that their opinion kind of has swayed on that matter. I do also think, the fact that Yuumi has been so prevalent as far as presence, at least, it was doing very well in scrims, and I think it was kind of showing some of these teams that, hey, Enchanter supports and these kind of mage supports can actually be quite effective. One of my concerns for this champion was you're never going to be able to get vision. You're not going to be able to kind of have that that dichotomy in the mid game where you have this tank support face checking brushes and putting down wards, and that was always why a lot of people said champions like Sona couldn't function in the meta.
Right.
And now that Yuumi has had a lot of success, we're seeing Sona independently more often. It is kind of interesting to see if we're going to even find more of a shift towards that. Even Biofrost bringing out Zyra last week, and it is feeling like there's a little bit of a change in the meta.
Yeah, we'll see as that moves around, because I do agree. I think there's a whole suite of champions that aren't being seen right now that probably could be. You mentioned Taric and Hecarim together, but it is TSM who gets them. It's FlyQuest deciding to take their time. They've grabbed Elise jungle, which is a nice standout for me. They say, okay, Jace is the most important solo laner of everything left up, and now Lux is picked up, and odds are to support Lux with Aftershock, but we've seen her mid as well a little bit.
Yeah, usually it's only picked mid kind of as that counter to Zoe is when we have been seeing it recently. I do also suspect that it is going to be bot lane, but FlyQuest obviously going a very different route. To picking away the Taric and the Hecarim was something that I thought they could have gone for. Now that they haven't, you're essentially giving TSM that core back, which they used to defeat CLG last week. They had these 3 picks, plus I believe Jace themselves, as well as Zillion mid lane for Bjergsen, and that was very effective for them. This type of strategy is pretty telegraphed from FlyQuest, though. This is them looking to attack the top side of the map. There was an interview last week, actually, from Contracts, where he was asked about AP junglers, and he was talking about how he thinks that Elise can be very effective, but only when paired with one of 2 champions, Jace or Renekton. They have the Jace here. This is someone that can bully out the top lane, that can set up for dives, where the Elise really will excel. So, TSM is going to have to pick a very, I would say, kind of self-sustaining top laner who can play defensively, because Hecarim normally wants to play more around the Taric, where he can use that Dazzle Bastion combo.
Absolutely, and of course, we'll see what does come through to finish out this roster. We have still these solo lanes of TSM yet to pick. FlyQuest get ultimate final counter pick here as the bans are nearly done. Camille dropped off the bench, Sivir dropped as well. As you can see, several bot lane bans have come through, trying to aim at Wild Turtle's champion pool. But he says, Caitlyn got some buffs recently. She's looking pretty good now. Let's bring this one out.
Yeah, and Caitlyn plus Lux, functions somewhat similarly to how Morgana and Caitlyn does. If you ever are able to hit a binding, you can trap right out of that. Post 6, the burst that Lux is going to be bringing in with that ultimate, that final spark is quite powerful. So certainly there is some all-in potential there if you can be on point with those bindings.
Ooh, and Pyke into the top lane. Thank you, G2 Esports, for bringing it out into the world. We can see it mid as well. It's a solo laner almost certainly regardless, but I'm expecting top into Jace. And, well, if you want to try to camp someone, I think you could probably get away with camping Pyke reasonably well. And now you've got to blind pick yourself a mid laner. I really don't think it's Zed right here. I like the hover. But what is it that he's going to pick for himself? Yasuo would be exciting.
My guess is it's something like Orianna, probably.
Yeah.
I think that that can be pretty effective. Ryze also does work here. This does give you a bit of a flex pick potentially with the Pyke and the Ryze, but we are expecting certainly Pyke to go into the Jace. Ryze is going to allow them to play in those side lanes, and we'll see how effective the counter pick is going to be here.
Oh!
Riven!
Jace goes back into the mid lane. Okay. Riven's going in there to battle Pyke 1v1. I love this. I am assuming Pope is not keeping the Riven.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to go to Viper. The question is just, will these guys actually lane swap on the side of TSM? Will Bjergsen continue to keep this Ryze, or will he swap it over? Because there is the potential to still put Pyke into that Jace if that's what they want to go for. But this is very aggressive here from FlyQuest. It feels so much about the early game. You need to dominate with this Elise. You need to have bullying lanes here. and they are really going to try to ramp up the pace against TSM.
Well, Azale, it feels like Contract's left the champ off the pool. Says you need a physical damage top laner like Jace or like Renekton. Well, how about Riven for Viper alongside the Elise? This is definitely going to be the telegraph of, hey, we really want to blow this top lane. That Pyke is going to stay up there. I am excited for what those two players can do. It is a very physical heavy team. You're relying on jungle, Elise, and support Lux for your magic damage. So if Hecarim gets tanky, that's going to be a bit hard to deal with. But this is an exciting draft. FlyQuest putting a lot of effort on getting Viper to win his 1v1.
And I'm really excited to see if they can pull this one off. Really think they need to dominate the early game. If you allow this TSM squad to get to those later stages, we saw what they wanted to do, and we saw it against CLG. Very easy to execute, diving onto a champion like Lux, similar to what they did against Biofrost on his Zyra. You really can abuse those low mobility mage supports with Hecarim in combination with that Taric. So gonna have to get a lot of work done here early.
Let's see how much work they can do. We are on to the Rift, everybody. TSM 1-1, FlyQuest 0-2. The big story we had coming into the summer split was who could crack the top 3 of last splits, Team Liquid, TSM, and Cloud9. FlyQuest was one of the ones that got the nod, but it was a slow start for them. And Santorin said early practice wasn't going their way, but now they're on the Rift against one of these top 3 teams. They are up against TSM, a team that did look mortal in week 1. And this is a good time to strike for FlyQuest.
Certainly is, and something that already I'm kind of noticing here is it's actually coin Sona. This is the first time I've seen Sona Taric without the Spell Feast. I think this does make quite a bit of sense against such an impressive lane like the Caitlyn and the Lux, because you're simply not going to have winning trades with them oftentimes very early. If you ever do get bound up, you are going to potentially even just die to a trap plus binding combo. So this is going to allow Sven to play quite passively and still maintain a high level of income. So, you know, his damage will be down a bit, but he's going to complete that Sight Stone faster and then be able to start his farming faster as a result.
It's also going to be more mana regen than a Spell Thief would have given. So if he is on heal duty all lane long to keep Smoothie alive, he's going to be a bit better at that as well. And we are going to see what happens in these level 1s. He's in a fairly aggressive Trinket Ward. We'll spot the Raptor camp as TSM leashes the red buff for Acadian. The duo of FlyQuest is going to get right over to the lane at the start of this one and not deal with a 2-on-2 too early on. Acadian knocks that one down. Then he's going to try to bypass the Trinket Ward. Now he'll walk right to the Raptor camp and he'll be spotted doing so.
Yeah, so in these early levels, you can see Turtle and JJ posturing very aggressively. They want to be able to threaten, you know, onto this lane. And remember, it's Smoothie that has to be taking the farm before Sven actually completes his quest. You know, that is usually how they are going to play it out. And that is going to be very, very difficult for him to actually get done here against the Lux and a Caitlyn. And not only can they actually, you know, bully out that 2v2, they're very effective at sieging the turrets, at knocking down turret plates. So that is certainly another part of their plan here. If they do win that 2v2 very heavily, you can start to move them around the map. Pyke is certainly not someone who can kind of hold in that 1v2 type scenario either. Very low on the wave clear. So, you know, if they have success there, it could mean a lot of turret plates going down across the map.
And right now, actually, Taric has not even been allowed to get farm, so it's 4 CS on Sona and poor Smoothie kind of waiting for farm to get his way. We wait around as these battles keep going back and forth. The poke lead obviously does go with the FlyQuest side. The healing is what TSM's going to do to not die in this one as Zen walks up, grabs that little bit of extra gold, and 7 CS with 1 for a support is a fairly slow start here. Now, I am curious if this lane just ends up being Sona just farming directly and taking, you know, whenever the coins do come in, that's the play style. Again, I have not seen coin Sona myself as the farm role, but who knows? Maybe it's an innovation I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, this way you can actually farm, you know, without having it turned off like the Spell Thieves would be. So, you know, that might just be the idea here. This will be a much lower income Taric then. You know, certainly an adaptation on the strategy, which I think makes sense. And this is a dive you cannot really pull off because Acadian is here. So they're going to have to just back off, but already getting some good chip down on this turret. Acadian right place, right time, though, to dissuade this dive. And even Pobelter making the roam.
Yeah, coming on down and making sure that a little bit of that farm was lost. You can see 19-11 at this point. It does feel like Sona is actually the primary farm member as far as I can tell. So cool new look here onto this one, but it's still an early turret plate taken down. It was Acadian who had to path correctly to be there, and okay, to his credit, he did and stays alive on this one. But And this is still a 2-on-2 lead that's going pretty well on FlyQuest's side.
And I think it's smart, right? You know, if Smoothie was trying to be the primary farmer here, I do think he would just be taking too much poke, probably losing too much health, and you're just going to hard lose the lane off of that. But even with this strategy, you can see Sven already sent back to base. Hopefully for him, he has enough for that coin upgrade. He does have teleport. Turtle is also playing TP, so, you know, we'll be trying to really keep this tempo up in this bottom lane.
All right, so in we go. Back onto the map is Sven burning his first teleport and getting just the Fairy Charm and a refillable potion. Not the most exciting start. Also the coin upgrade, which, yeah, as Azale thumbs up to me silently and says, Freak, don't miss that one. The coin upgrade, of course, probably the biggest thing you're looking for in that recall.
Exactly. You really want to get that early gold income. That is so much of what it is about.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of interesting to me because I do think that, you know, this is a really smart adaptation based on the lane that they're playing against. I wonder in a situation like this, if it doesn't just make sense to actually just go Airy then instead of Klepto as well, right? Because for the similar thought process, if you're not actually getting a lot of autos off in lane, the Klepto gold is going to be very low. You're not going to be like actually stealing a lot of things. And we'll have to kind of track throughout the game how much he's really able to get through that Klepto. Because if he's not getting a ton, I do tend to think Airy would probably just be more effective.
Sure. I actually agree with that Keystone choice here. One thing I do want to point out with this coin plus farm Sona, gold basically identical to Wild Proto. Despite the 10 CS difference, the gold is, well, actually, yeah, within 12 here. So this is definitely working out. He is on parity completely, and eventually that will be a late but eventual combine there as they go for a little bit of damage there. Sven takes a couple of hits, and now some attacks back towards JJ as the Lux tries to farm out through the Spell Thieves. Does have more gold than Tyrk, otherwise, though, fairly equal. Quick check in on the top lane. A small farm lead towards Broken Blade, but with a very large wave for Viper to farm. Means Riven, in my mind, is actually winning in CS and will long term. But this has been a fairly close 1v1.
Yeah, and thus far, you know, Santorin really hasn't made many moves. He did go down to that bottom side. It was answered by Acadian, so not really any commitment to that. Besides that, he's just been kind of power farming here. You know, he is up in experience over Acadian, currently level 5 to level 4, but it's not the kind of explosive early game that I think you're really hoping for as FlyQuest. I do think that you were hoping by the time Hecarim is 6, that Santorin has already killed a number of people or forced a lot of summoners or kind of, you know, created some sort of significant advantage for his team, and that certainly is not the case just yet.
And right now, Santorin is lying in wait, hoping he finds Hecarim in rotation, apparently, as doesn't walk by into the control wards that's been put down earlier. Looks like he popped a blast cone and now goes to fight this ward as the red buff has spawned. Right now, Acadian is taking the long way around. Level 5 now on both these players, and who actually now found out by Poether as well, as mid lane is missing, and Acadian is going to be shoved out of his jungle. The red buff will be stolen, so there is that glimmer of early game aggressive jungling that you were hoping for at the Elise. It's not a kill, but it's a buff steal.
Yeah, and this is really nice, and you can also see, you know, if you look at the mini-map, you know, this bottom side of the jungle, look at all these wards that they do have in this whole area, these 4 wards around there for FlyQuest. They're trying to establish control in this area because Pobelter has the push in mid lane. So that would allow you to then set up a situation where you can bring that 4-man bot for a potential dive. That is what they were kind of showing in those early levels. They haven't been able to pull it off thus far, but you know, that is the kind of thing that you do want to see. I will say it is a bit surprising to me, though, that he hasn't been playing more towards the Riven. That is where I was expecting them to have more focus, kind of around those solo lanes. And you know, so far they've been happy to just have Pyke farming against this Riven evenly, and no significant advantage really has come from Viper's Riven pick.
And I'm curious what the matchup actually looks like long term, if it is one that, you know, flips on one item and going equal, and then suddenly you've got Tiamat and you win the game. Like, you know, I just don't know how that plays out, but that might be what's in their head.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, Riven certainly will win the 1v1s. You know, there's a certain point in the game where, you know, you are starting to get tanky enough once you have a lot of CDR as the Riven. The Pyke is going to really struggle to even get you into execute range. But Pyke doesn't really care about winning that 1v1 unless you're diving him and actually killing him. His goal is more just push the wave, roam, and join these explosive team fights where Hecarim is going to be diving into the backline with a Taric ultimate, trying to get one of these squishy members low, and then all of a sudden Broken Blade can pop off in that fight and really start looking for the executes and the resets.
Oh, pretty good damage down here as Sven is now out of mana despite the very heavy regen build. The 4th plate almost taken under 9 minutes in. One of the benefits of this Aftershock Lux is it's very trivial to get demolish in that page and just get the chunks down. So 1100 health in that turret, but here comes TSM.
Base checking at the wrong time.
Vine hits one. Aftershock is on for a bit of durability, but JJ's got to flash get away. But here comes the fear on top of Crescendo. Tarek stun lands as well, and the shield will not be enough. First blood comes in for Sven. Damage towards Turtle. Now we've got Santorin coming
in
around.
for Viper.
Is this going to be a chance for FlyQuest to get anything done? No, Viper TPs looks like back to top lane, or it gets canceled by Pyke. I'm not
canceled.
sure.
Yeah, Pyke must have canceled that because he was actually TPing on that pink ward. He was about to be in the middle of 4 people with Flash Ultimate up. That could have been huge for them, but we'll see if we can get a replay. I can almost guarantee you Pyke did interrupt that, as I saw the teleport was coming through on the map, and that is still a very nice play for TSM. They grab first blood for themselves. It goes to the Sona, so that is, doing a lot of work to equalize all the extra gold that the plates had given them. And here this is one more time. JJ is expecting that this play could happen. He just does not realize that it is already here. So face checking at the wrong time there. Acadian played this out very, very well. He gets on top of him, waits for him to flash to then ultimate. And yeah, that is... Oh, Viper was not quite in the brush. He was standing just outside the brush, so Broken Blade actually had vision to cancel that. But imagine this situation where Viper shows up on top of 4 stacked members and flash stuns with the ulti. Shock Blast comes through. Maybe something crazy is able to be turned around. Still, great job by Broken Blade, and that's TSM coming out on top on the bottom side of the map.
Yep, good fight right there. It meant the bot lane goal between Sona and Caitlyn was equalized. As you mentioned, it does a lot to counteract what those plates had done earlier on. This is still FlyQuest up a bit of gold, though, and it's FlyQuest with the Cloud Drake afterwards. The Santorin had control of bot river, so this early game does look good for them. Broken Blade getting away.
Yeah. I mean, I still just tend to think game state-wise, gold and everything like that, that's fine. But when you're looking at the compositions, I am very worried for FlyQuest's early game. The fact that, you were level 7 and Elise has not pulled off a single successful gank. This is not why you pick Elise. You pick Elise to slam the early game, to be constantly repeat ganking, not to be farming even against the Hecarim. And now the Hecarim is post 6. As these guys start to get more and more of their items, they can start to group up and force fights, and that is a situation where Elise just doesn't really want to be.
Yep. But you can see the way that FlyQuest moving their team around the map. They know the 2-on-2 looks good for them, and they can obviously 2-on-1 the Pyke. They're trying to put Caitlyn in lanes where you can farm plates. They got off that bot lane, left it at 1, sent the duo top side. We know Rift Herald is alive here, and, well, there's 4 members in this river, so that might be picked up before too long. But they're trying to farm the first 14 minutes of the game off of TSM structures and using that early 2-on-2. What we have seen with Sona Tarek for a while now is they lose the early laning phase. It's the mid game they turn on. That's a bind on a 2, but it means JJ has to walk away, and here comes Hecarim again. Finds the fear, not the stun though. Isn't enough damage though. JJ trying to run away. Does not have the flash any longer, and he does walk away. The shields were enough to stay alive, bypassing the first 2 ultimates used by TSM.
Yeah, the Aftershock huge. Couple points in that W shield as well for JJ. Did help him out, and it was honestly a really nice sidestep, but now they're going in.
And Crescendo on it too is a lot of damage. Smithy gets the follow-up stun as well. Here comes the Katie, just jumped in his time. Repel, try and get away, smite it, slowed down. Here comes the reinforcements. Is it enough damage? Binding not gonna land. There's a root onto the front line. Looking at killing 1, looking at a second, and JJ just gets blown down. TSM 3-0.
Yeah, Bjergsen able to TP in from base, following up with the Realm Warp here too. And he's even looking like he wants to go for the Righteous Glory build. So this is the LPL special. Doenby really making this build quite popular. We haven't been seeing it in NA though. So this is going to be Seraph's very likely into Righteous Glory. And if you fully follow that Doenby special, it will be followed up by a Rylai's. And it's so strong for engaging, for brawling, for being up in your opponent's face and finding those initial fights.
Well, the kills are going TSM's way. The objectives have been going for FlyQuest, though, as bot lane tier 1. The first turn of the game, Povelter leeches local gold into that one, but this can be answered pretty quickly as Acadian picks up the Soul of the Rift Herald picked up now and has a minute to summon it if he wants plates with that. Otherwise, you can summon it later on and go for that secondary turret, 500 gold.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does use it. I do tend to really like when they drop it pre-14 for just the guaranteed kind of 360 gold that you can get from that. And we'll see if that is going to be the option here, or if they elect to kind of save it for later on when they're going to try to group 5 and look for a siege situation, try to force FlyQuest to group up and fight them 5v5, which is not really the situation that FlyQuest wants to be in. Here is the pro view replay. Bjergsen having TP'd in from base, avoiding that trap, gets in on top of JJ, and a nice combo able to knock him down. As soon as the Aftershock is gone, if there's not a pre-shield, Lux is very, very squishy. There's no health built up. There's no MR or armor built up. So you are really reliant on that aftershock and on your positioning to kind of stay safe in these fights.
And of course, that can be really difficult when you got Moby Boots and those get turned off by being hit. So JJ, unfortunately, 0-2 and 0. The early duo has done well with turret pressure, but the fights have still gone TSM's way. The gold remains FlyQuest favorite, and actually more so than it was a little while ago. But again, TSM, I think they scale really, really well, and that's, you know, maybe just completely fine for them.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see how FlyQuest is kind of trying to play this out, right? Because now the game becomes, once you're in this position where, yep, you didn't snowball the early game, it becomes about, can you avoid the team fight? Can you force TSM to constantly have to answer you in those side lanes? Because if FlyQuest can hard commit to a 1-3-1 style strategy and kind of never be forced to actually group and fight, then they're going to be in a pretty good spot to kind of avoid a lot of the power that Zona Taric brings. But here is Acadian dropping the Rift Herald, trying to force FlyQuest to group up and answer them. They do get the charge, but they won't get much more off of that besides positioning on this Infernal, and that's where they want to go. They're trying to force FlyQuest to come to them for a 5v5.
Yep, there we go. The flash crescendo not going to land those splits. The upright. Here comes the engage anyway. Hecker in the middle finds two. Furious gets that first kill and a reset for Broken Blade, and they can certainly chase for more. Do they find the opening? Akini goes down. Viper has arrived, and his fangs are sharp. 2 kills picked up for FlyQuest, turning the fight right around.
Yeah, a bit of an overchase there from Acadian. The cooldowns were ending. He kept wanting more, hoping to get someone into low enough HP that Broken Blade could get another ultimate down, but they didn't have the follow-up. And Viper turns it around on them. That is a huge couple kills going the way of FlyQuest, which also results in that Infernal Dragon.
Big pickup there, and this is feeling like a solid mid game as FlyQuest are doing a pretty good job. The 0-2 start to the split. Maybe it's going to be turned around here with a fight, with a eventual win over TSM. Watch that fight again. Sven just barely missing.
Yeah, it actually looked like JJ maybe was kind of hooked out of that ultimate. I'm not quite sure. The Pike ultimate did hit him. Either way, they do knock down JJ, but the return damage is huge here as everyone from FlyQuest, those are the 4 main threats who are still alive. So Acadian going forward with that Taric ultimate falling off, he is not a tanky horse and does get knocked down very, very quickly. This is going to put Viper in a pretty nice position here. Viper now very strong in this 1v1. He has his Black Cleaver as well as the Caulfield, so he's sitting on a lot of CDR at this point in the game. And is going to really be getting to that point where he can dominate the 1v1 very easily.
He's sitting 1,000 gold over Broken Blade. It's like 20% gold lead individually. That should be enough to give him a lot of say over how this matchup plays out. Taking down that bottom scuttle, no problem as well, and it still sits in this 2,000 gold lead for FlyQuest with 2 in-combat Drakes, which can help kind of withstand how much combat stats TSM have with their 2 Aura bots.
Yeah, and I mean, anytime you can win a grouped-up team fight against TSM, that bodes so well because FlyQuest, for the most part, is wanting to play the 1-3-1. They are wanting to play the side lane. So, you know, TSM, it's on them to try to force the hand of FlyQuest with these hard engages. But the 3-man squad from FlyQuest that is going to be defending these turrets is quite safe. You have Elise who can help to clear the waves out with the volatile spiderlings. Lux has fairly good wave clear. Caitlyn does as well. You know, these champions are all in combination as a 3-man squad. Going to be able to clear out those waves pretty quickly and hopefully for them buy time for their Riven and Jace to be successful in the side lanes.
All right, now we have 1.5 items in for Caitlyn as Wild Turtle has the Zeal, and the IE, of course, already done for a while now. The Seraph has some time to go. The Sona about 2/3 of the way until that's going to turn all the way around from Archangels up, building toward the next item as well. Typical hunting guys coming through eventually. Not hunting guys, sorry. Abyssal Mask coming through eventually for Smoothie. But we're kind of in transition for a lot of the TSM purchases right now.
Yeah, and the Abyssal Mask is going to be a lot further into the game than it normally would be because he was not farming in the early stages. Remember, this is a lot lower income than Taric often
default
has.
support Taric income.
Exactly. Like, this is just a regular support Taric building a fairly expensive item. So it's going to be quite a while before he does finish that up. And you know, another thing I never really got to kind of talk about with the Righteous Glory here on Bjergsen that he's going to be building towards is also that both of the split pushers, people in the sidelines, are both going to be dealing physical damage. So you know, the Glacial Shroud in and of itself is just quite effective and quite an efficient item, whether you're going up against Viper or Pobelter.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to be really one-running Elise in this game, and you beat JJ regardless, so I agree. It definitely super fits the bill based on game state, based on enemy composition. Now, has the Merc Treads to deal with CC, has some flat pen to get some more damage output in these fights later on. And you can see again, Viper very easily able to knock down these waves. Broken Blade putting a ward down, making sure he's not getting dove by the Elise. Mid lane tier 1 now falls as well, as FlyQuest seem to have the somewhat better 4-on-4. Granted, you've got Bjergsen up there in the top side, but this is a map state that feels like it's going FlyQuest's way.
Yeah, definitely the case, but we all know how well a lot of these champions do scale. Sona, Taric, Ryze, and Hecarim, in particular, that 4-man squad, do just continually get stronger and stronger the later the game goes. I do think that they will start to outpace a lot of the people that they're sitting across from when you're looking particularly at the Elise and the Jace. Those champions can, I think, struggle in the late game team fights compared to some of their opponents. So FlyQuest, though, doing a pretty good job thus far. They have knocked down 2 of the outer turrets. They're still up over 2,000 gold, and the Infernal, I think, really helping to kind of secure some of that advantage going towards the late game when they have 5 champions who are building AD and AP. This is, a fairly aggressive squad here.
Now, once again, mid lane pushed in and answered by FlyQuest here as we wait again for this game state to push forward. 40 seconds on Drake spawn. That's going to be, I think, one of the big triggers here in this game. It's starting the action up once again. FlyQuest have been the team to have better control over neutrals. Now fighting for this ward right here, but have to respect what the engage could be over the wall. That ward that makes them feel very safe, and the Shock Blast pushes TSM right off.
And this buy from Viper is so enormous going into this Infernal, but TSM is trying to look for the engage.
Big stun stops it as well.
Great
the
disengage.
Terrical does absolutely nothing. There is no hard engage here.
Yeah, and Viper just bought his Death Dance. He's now on Black Cleaver Death Dance at level 13, and he is ready to go.
Into 1-3. Hecarim over the top. JJ's gone already, but Viper, he wants blood. He gets one answered back. Now fights for a bit more, but Brooklyn over the wall. Almost in lethal range. Not just yet, though. 2 for 1 to FlyQuest. Make it a third. They are winning these fights with 4 kills to 1.
The disengage from FlyQuest was so good, and TSM stuck around. It looked like they wanted to try to fight it out or see if they could get something done anyway, but without the Taric ultimate, without that major cooldown, and with Viper on this huge power spike, Viper dives into the backline, essentially 1v3, and he's the one coming out on top.
Massive stuff out of the marquee champion of the FlyQuest top laner. He's put in 10,000 games in this one at least, and it shows. 2-0 and 2, the big factor in this fight.
Yeah, and that cocoon was absolutely enormous. The TP was committed. They decide to stay around, though. They're not fully retreating out of this. Now, notice Broken Blade is split off from the rest of the team. In goes Santorin.
Wow,
the flash from Sven was really nice, but they don't have the full complement of people there. Broken Blade was not there for the ultimate reset. And look at Viper, he just gets right in on top of Sven, knocks him down, takes Smoothie out. And TSM in disarray after that failed engage. FlyQuest get the Baron and will now be able to move over towards this Infernal and look to grab that as well.
It seems to be one of the ways you have to try to beat this Sona Taric sort of team is find a way to withstand the Terrical to not get burst out, but then have burst damage yourself that can't sustain through it. And Riven, who is ahead, diving a Sona without any armor is a pretty good way to knock someone down before the heals can really matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty insane. Viper is up 2K now on his lane opponent and has double Infernal, which is a tremendous amount of additional AD at this point in the game. So that value is really skyrocketing for them. And with this Baron buff, they are in a position where they could snowball this game and close it out. TSM, really looking like they do not have the answers right now. So they are going to try to just pull the map apart. They're putting Bjergsen out to the side lane here, having him split push, and they're looking to just trade gold for gold because they know that they are behind, and if you can trade equally from that spot, it's going to be pretty good.
Well, you can see a 5, almost 6,000 gold with Baron buff on for 2 minutes. They're pushing in for even more here, looking at the inhibitor tower itself. Now, ults are up for the TSM contingent, but if they even press those buttons or they win the fight. As we wait and go back and forth across these lanes, Viper once again in the bottom lane. Broken Blade gonna have a pretty hard time fighting him out of this one. Does have a bit of wave through it. Baron minions are quite tanky against champions.
I mean, Broken Blade can't do anything at all in the 1v1. I think Viper wins the 1v1 under Broken Blade's turret at this point in the game. So,
Probably.
It's pretty brutal when the Viper is on 40% CDR from ahead with a Death Dance. You just don't have the damage to actually get him low before he knocks you down. So TSM is constantly going to have to send a second member down to support, and that is why they are looking potentially for an engage down here. Bjergsen moving down is around. They're at least going to clear it out.
All right, minion wave cleared. He has backup from Bjergsen, and TSM are weathering the storm. There's only a minute left on this Baron buff, and That means 2 more rounds of this, but Inhibitor turret in the mid lane going to drop as well. Turtle very safely in the back line, just puts out the damage. Rapid fire cannon long since finished, and it means he can hit those turrets from very far away. Second seal in inventory as well as he puts the shots in. Inhibitor's dropping.
And notice how they're playing on this trap line that Turtle has set up. There's 4 traps there that they're constantly dipping back to. That is very difficult for TSM to actually engage into. So with this great siege composition that they actually have from ahead, TSM is really, really struggling to hold on here. First Inhibitor is already down. There is still 20 more seconds on this Baron buff, and they could very likely take a second.
Glimmer for Broken Blade, finds the pullback on Centaur, not the stun, but they're gonna go for the play right now. Fear comes in, finds 2, the stun on top. Is this the fight that TSM needs? But Viper charges right back in. It's venomous, 4 kills, and the stopwatch stops the reset. So nothing comes through for Pyke. It's 4 for 0, and FlyQuest will wreak havoc. They will take out the TSM base, and a sub 25-minute victory. We said, could FlyQuest top of the top 3? Well, they will top of the finalists here. FlyQuest take down the Nexus and take down TSM.
What an incredible game here from FlyQuest. Absolutely dismantling TSM, and Viper in particular popping off in these team fights on the Riven, really making it work here. FlyQuest have got to be feeling so good about that after the rough week 1 start, bouncing back, taking down TSM, one of that top 3 that so many people have been talking about.
At the start of the summer split, Viper said, I want, when you think of FlyQuest, that you think of me first. And he was massive on this Riven. Got his pick for last, baited in the Pyke, said, I will play Riven in this matchup, I will smash. The early laning phase went equal, but the mid game was nothing but a one-sided affair. Huge in the team fights, dove the back line several times, single-handedly killing the Sona, maybe the Terragonauts, but afterwards, huge playmaker there, great TPs, lots of farm, lots of damage.
Yeah, he played an incredible game, but you've got to say, from the side of TSM, they were not looking very coordinated with this hard engage style team. And when I look at that last fight, FlyQuest played great, but at the same time, Viper, is able to kind of capitalize on this because his backline is safe, because the Pyke just used all his abilities and then Hecarim hard engaged. So Broken Blade had no E, no Q, and no way to reach the backline to actually reset while they're in that Hecarim fear. So this was a very uncoordinated engage from TSM.
Well, we got a lot for TSM to clean up. Then 1 and 2 is their record, but FlyQuest gets the win. We're going to send out a Pastry, who's standing by with Viper.
Thank you very much, Freak. I'm here with your favorite venomous top laner. It is Viper from FlyQuest. Rough first week. Has to feel pretty good winning that game on your signature Riven.
Yeah, first week was really rough for us. We all went hard on ourselves, so we put a lot of focus into this next upcoming week, and we got ourselves a win.
And of course, playing against Pyke, which is the champion we haven't seen too much of in the top lane. Was there anything about that particular matchup or about Broken Blade, who's such an aggressive top laner, that you were considering after champion select?
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect to get the Riven pick there, but I saw Pyke, they blinded Pyke, so it looked like a perfect Riven opportunity for me.
And then I mentioned that I actually ran into you before the show, and you said you were very confident coming into today. Clearly, that was true here. Kind of what inspired that confidence here?
This week of scrims went really, really well for us, I'd say. We focused a lot on our problems, and I felt a lot better than last week.
Looked a lot better too. Viper, thank you very much, and congratulations on the win. We are going to throw it back to the State Farm analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Pastry Time. FlyQuest finding their first win of the split over TSM. Moving to 1 and 2, that is. But I think we have to talk about some of the champion select points, as we heard Viper's thoughts himself on the Riven into the Pyke. But before we even get to that matchup, TSM junglers. Last week, Acadian suffered the loss on Saturday. Grig took the win with a very similar composition on Sunday. Got the Hecarim in the jungle next to a Sonateric, differing solo laners. But this time around, they decided to give Acadian the same opportunity with the Hecarim in the jungle, supported by the Sonateric, but don't get the victory.
Now, I don't believe that this was a game that you could say this was Acadian's difference with Grig. I think that TSM as a whole failed. As a unit, every time it came to a 5v5, which actually wasn't that many times, but it was just enough for FlyQuest to take the Baron, win these fights, and just snowball the game completely. So TSM needs to really look at themselves as a team and figure it out, because that's exactly what happened in their loss against TL as well.
I think it was interesting that FlyQuest kind of gave him that exact same comp that they won with and said, we'll beat you at what you want to play. And it's a very, slow style. Sonateric, for the most part, is not a very aggressive composition that comes online later. And in the first half of the draft, when they had Jace, Lux, and the least take, and I was like, I'm scared for FlyQuest.
I love the FlyQuest draft.
Yeah, the first half had me a little scared, but then when it later showed that it was a double flex to get that mismatch against the Pyke, I started loving what the draft was, even though it's not really a strong team comp per se. It's a lot of win lane, win game, and then hopefully the Riven can pop off. And they did that, and that's surprising because FlyQuest has always been a kind of middle-of-the-road team in terms of aggressiveness, in terms of combined kills per minute, in terms of team kills per deaths. And so I was scared that they couldn't pull this off, much the same way I was when they picked Pyke, they couldn't pull it off. And I was really nervous heading into this game for them.
That's a beautiful anti-synergy there between Sven and Broken Blade's Pyke, which still, it was not amazing. What was amazing was Viper's Riven. Every single time he gets his hand on this champion, it goes really well. And this is the fight that really broke the game wide open, because Broken Blade gets split off. TSM does not have Taric ultimate, and Santorin makes a great flash, but who makes this call to re-engage? That is Acadian right there. He goes for this play, and yes, you get JJ, but he's been dying by himself all game long. You didn't have to commit that much to do this, and so Broken Blade never quite joins the fight. Bjergsen only now is really starting to deal damage. Then they take one Baron
this
and the
fight,
game's
though,
over.
from Viper, you talk about his prowess on Riven. Let's take a look here at the final fight of the game as FlyQuest is pushing in with Baron.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these fights that TSM lost were started on TSM's terms, and they're just not able to execute cleanly enough. Pobelter does a good job in the front, kind of buying space, so then when it's Viper's turn to step forward, he's absolutely able to crush this fight, and this is what, we wanted to see out of FlyQuest. This is a team that's actively addressing what they think the meta is and drafting towards it and adapting, because last week they take the Pyke top, they think it's strong. It doesn't go well, but they don't give up, they don't abandon because they're focused on improvement.
And to some degree, this goes back to the conversation we were having around teams and whether or not they should be playing standard or looking for more creative picks. To me, the way that FlyQuest has approached the summer split, and in a sense supported by Invert's interview that he gave us last week, is that they have decided to attack the game in a different way, to find more creative ways to play. And to your point, Mark, there is some fear in that, right? There is some fear that you don't ever get to that level and you've just sacked a whole bunch of your regular season games while not being able to live up to it. Well, this time around, this is the first piece of evidence we have from FlyQuest that their new direction, they're finding some footing and they might be able to continue to climb this way.
And they're ready to bust out the Riven at any time. It's a champion that you're not going to be able to ban out. You don't want to ban Riven in the first phase, even in the second phase. So you don't waste it, but you always know it's in the back of your mind when you're up against Viper. And then they bust out JJ with the Lux. Now we've seen better Luxes, but he still had it, and he was landing key binds in team fights, and that is what really counts.
And I think, for me, in the conversations before the season started, we're talking about what's FlyQuest's ceiling. I was in the camp that was like, I think they're pretty close to already. I think it was Azale I was talking to who took the other side. And it's like, well, Viper is their ceiling. Like, how high Viper goes is how high this team can go. And if you're starting to learn how to play more around him, and you're drafting in ways that allows him to flex things and get counter picks, and then be a more snowbally team, your ceiling can continue to rise with him, because not only is Viper improving with time in the league, but your team is starting to gel better with his play style. So I think in terms of how high the ceiling can go, it's really kind of on Viper to grow, because people like Pobelter and Wild Turtle, they're great, but they've been in the league for a really long time now.
You have a guy with seemingly uncapped potential at this point, being supported by a lot of very steady guys across the map. You're looking at Santorin as well, who's been a long-time LCS jungler, professional jungler, who's able to support him. And I think, using Viper's kind of ceiling as the guiding light, let's shoot for that while the rest of us have some understanding of what to play while still finding a unique pick here or there. It might be their recipe for success, and actually entering that conversation again for taking down one of the Titanic trio at the top.
It's one of the best ways to build a team. You have 5 players, so instead of going 3 veterans and 2 rookies, you go 2 veterans and then 3 people that don't necessarily have to be rookies, but just are more mechanically gifted or just newer to the league that you want to train up. And just having those 2 voices in a game at all times really helps guide a player like Viper, who also has the luxury of having Santorin by his side, guiding him through what it was like for him to be a rookie that had a phenomenal start, and so that he makes sure that you don't plateau and fall off right away, that he keeps riding that momentum upwards.
A very solid victory out of FlyQuest here to snag their first one of the split. Crown and Power of Evil, though, challenge one another after the break. And if you're curious as to how that matchup will play out, click by click, grab your subscription of ProView today, where you get player POVs and a multitude of stats to complement your viewing experience. Optic versus CLG takes place when we return. Oh, you're gonna rent that bike?